So shall we start, or are we still waiting for more people to connect?
I don't. If you are hearing me, I think better to wait a little bit.
Okay, let's
Because
wait.
only we do have 10 participants, so Girma.
Yes, I am here, Mr.
So what shall we do? Shall we wait a little bit or shall we start?
I think we have to start. Then they will join us.
All right.
Good.
Okay. All right. Good to have you here today. Let me just see. So today what we want to do is I would like to welcome the new participants, because we have started the second cohort from Hawassa. We have now signed up around 8-9 new participants. So I would really like to extend a very warm welcome to them. The other cohort hasn't finished yet, so you're running in parallel, and you might want to catch up, so you know what's happening. Welcome. If you have any questions regarding how to use the course, you can always send me an email, or even better if you contact Girma, because Girma really knows a lot about how to use the course, and he might point you in the right direction. I would like to get your feedback from those who have been using the course. Are there any problems, or is there anything that you've particularly enjoyed since our last meeting? Open your mics, just let me know. Girma, did you have any feedback from students since our last meeting?
Yes, I have been taking some feedbacks from students.
Can you summarize it for me, please?
Okay, let me try. The first one is from the second cohort students that have been struggling to register. Then they have been struggling to register on the course because they enter on their email wrongly, and they didn't receive their email registration form.
Okay.
That's the first problem. For the first cohort, most of the students are going through the course this week because we are on a break, but we can't finish the course because some of the exercises cannot be done efficiently. I may have tell you some of the activities we cannot work. You can see from the module 2, chapter 8, around chapter 8, some of the activities cannot be done. I don't know why. It may be our problem or from the website.
What was they cannot be done? Like
Yeah.
you cannot access them at all, or they do not show completed, or what is the problem?
It's the activities, but we cannot submit our answers.
So you cannot submit.
Yeah, we cannot submit the answers.
Okay, let me check.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as well, from chapter 16, module 3, the first chapter in the module 3,
Mm-hmm.
there is an activity which says give it a try about the processing.
Yes.
Yes, but in there, we need to act at the lab in order to process the activity and the assignments. But I don't think we can act at the lab now. Then I don't know how can we do these activities.
Okay. All right. I wanted to actually talk to Yitna and Taruso about this because obviously you will need to have access to the lab to cook something or to dry something or whatever it is. So you do not have to do this activity in the order of the course. If you cannot enter the lab or you don't have access to a kitchen right now, just leave it until you can, because I think it is more important for you to actually do the exercise than just uploading some documents, right? This exercise is not, the purpose of this exercise is not for me to see that you know a recipe. The purpose of this exercise is for you to really get hands-on experience, to try something, to work on something, not write down or read or research, whatever. I want you to do something, because even if it's a very simple process, for example, somebody uploaded something on drying bananas, green bananas, which is a simple process, or making yogurt is also a very simple process. But while you're doing it, you might experience some issues. And these issues are very, very important for your learning. If you want to process food, you need to get a feeling for the product. You need to understand where it could go wrong and which parameters you have to control. So you need to see, like, if the temperature, but if you make yogurt, for example, the temperature is not right, it might be too runny. If you don't get good cultures, it might not turn into yogurt at all. I want you to experience it. I want you to see what happens if you do something wrong, what you could do better. It's all about the learning experience, about getting a feeling for the product, and not about researching recipes. So if you can't go to the lab right now, just drop it until later. I will talk to Yitna and Taruso to make sure that at some point they will give you access to the lab so you can do it, because that is the most important thing about it. Yeah?
Right, you are right.
Anything else?
Yeah, there are more activities we can submit,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
on module 4, chapter 18.
18?
Yeah.
Chapter 18. Okay. Let me check why you cannot submit. Sometimes it might be that there's a restriction. You have to finish something else before you can access an exercise. But I can also see if there's something wrong with the submission settings. I will have a look at this today.
Yeah, since the activities cannot be submitted, we cannot fully complete the course at 100%. That's why we haven't finished the course 100% until now.
Okay, all right. Okay, let me have a look at those. Okay, good. Thank you. That's why we need to have this feedback, because from my side, I cannot see it until I really get this information and check what's wrong. Thank you for that, Gemma. If there's anything, please always inform me. You can always send me an email saying, listen, there's an issue with this activity, there's an issue with this chapter, then I can check it more quickly. Yeah? All right. I tried this week also to give you feedback on your submissions as much as possible, because a lot of you have already submitted your business idea draft. And I tried to give you comments to, like, how you could shape it a bit more perfectly before I grade it. I haven't graded those submissions yet. I wanted to give you a chance to review it and maybe make some changes before I give you a final grade. So please take the time to read my comments and then maybe make some changes to your submissions. I will give it another 2 weeks because I will be on leave for 2 weeks from Monday. So in 2 weeks, I will look at your submissions again, and then I will give you a final grade on your submission. So you have another 2 weeks to work on it and look at the questions that I've posted in my comments. All right, today I want to talk about a very important topic once you go into real life. Because right now you're still in university, right now it's all theory. Even the course that we're doing is thinking about how to start a business. But once you go and have your business started and you need to live it, it becomes a very different thing. I've been through it. I've started several businesses, and I know how much I struggled in the beginning with the management of these businesses. And there's a lot of things that you might forget about before you actually started and experience it. And that's what I want to talk about today. It's the managing of an enterprise. Management means like getting things done through other people. You can also, there's also the term of self-management, then you're managing yourself. But usually in a company, you would say management is managing your operations through other people. So you have to make sure those who work with you, work for you, do what they need to do in the right order for you to be successful. And secondly, what you have to manage are your resources. So resources is your building, your equipment, your materials, your money, your knowledge, your network. These are all your resources, and you need to manage them in a way that they work for you successfully. And if you're a good manager, that means you will be productive and your business will be profitable. If you've seen good businesses, you will find that the person behind that business, the business owner, is a very good manager. You see, you can change that person and the same business idea might fall through because another manager might not be as well in managing people and resources as the first one. So the person in charge, the manager, yourself, in that case, if you have a business, it plays a very important role in the productivity and profitability of a company. So let's have a look. What are essentials of good management? First of all, you need to be very, very efficient in your production planning. And we look at that in a bit more detail in a moment. Somebody is not muted. Can you please, let me just mute you. Here we go. So first of all, production planning, and we will look at that. Secondly, you have to have very good relationship with your customers and your suppliers. Both is very important because with either not working for you, it will fall through. Third, you have to make sure that you produce quality in a very consistent way. Because if your customer buys a product today and likes it and goes and buys it again, and then the quality is very different, you've lost that customer immediately. And winning a customer may take a lot of effort and time, but believe me, losing a customer happens in an instant. So managing your quality is very, very important. If you want to manage quality, that means you need to understand where are the critical control points in your process. What do you need to control to make sure you have a consistent product? So that means you cannot start a business without really understanding the process. And that's why I wanted you to make your product yourself with your hands. All right? Stand in the kitchen, make it yourself so you understand the entire process. You cannot rely just on your workers to do the thing if you do not understand what they have to do. So before you tell others what they should do, you have to be a master of the process. You need to know which are the critical points that need to be controlled. All right? Then it is extremely important to have good staff, good employees. That means selecting the right ones. Select those which are bright, passionate, willing, loyal, hardworking. Do not select somebody just because they are your cousin's cousin and your uncle said you have to employ that person. All right, that might be a disaster. So choose the right people, train them to the level they need to understand, and then keep them motivated. Because staff may also lose motivation very quickly. If you don't pay them regularly, so you keep them on, I'll pay you next month when I have money kind of line, you lose them very fast. If you do not give them like a bit of voice in the process, yeah, show them that you respect them as well. They are adults, they know their staff, discuss questions with them. If you always mistrust them and you let them feel that you do not trust them, they will repay you in the same kind. They will actually behave in such a way that you can't trust them. But if you show them that you trust them, they will always try to prove your trust. So you need to be very careful how you treat your people. If you treat them well, they usually treat them well back. If you treat them badly, they treat you badly back. So manage your employees. And then the last thing is you have to manage cost. You see, in a company, you have a certain amount of cash available. This cash has to be managed very carefully to make sure you can pay all your bills in time. If you do not control cost, it's like you have a wound that is constantly bleeding and it's bleeding and it's bleeding and it's bleeding until there's no blood left. The same in a company. If you do not control cost, your cash bleeds out until there is no cash left. So be very, very careful on where you put your money. Reduce cost as much as possible. That means controlling what you're paying money for. All right. I promised you that we would look into production planning in more detail. Before we do that, any questions to what I've said so far before we move on?
Can I say a little bit?
Please go ahead.
Little bit the second point, that is good relationship with customers. Yeah, good relationship with customers and suppliers. Yeah, we know that there is a word says customer is a king. So my concern is, shall we give our all ears for our customers? Because some customers will come up with different comments. So are we going to run just to give answer for this? All comments come from customers, because it has an implication on cost on different points. So what do you suggest? What do you say? Just to keep our relationship in a good position, shall we give all answer for our customers?
All right. So you always have to give answers to customers. Always. If you ignore them, they will feel ignored. All right. So you always have to answer them. But that does not mean you have to give in to each of their whims. All right. Answering a customer can also mean explaining to them the limits. All right. If I talk about good relationship with customers, I mean you have to understand who your customers are, what their needs are, and you need to communicate with them in a positive and regular manner. That does not mean doing everything they want, but at least explaining to them why you can't do what they want. All right. And explaining it to them in a way that they do not feel ignored, but they feel that you're reasonable. So it's more about you understanding your customers than doing what your customers want, right? You cannot return money always. You cannot change your product all the time. You cannot give them freebies all the time. But at least you have to make sure in all of that, they still feel you're a reasonable person and your business is a reliable, honest, good business. All right. So it is sometimes a bit tricky, and it also depends on how good you are in talking to people. So that's also another thing. Some people are really much better in talking and selling than others. All right. And if you're not good at that, if you get angry very quickly, or you get rude very quickly, or you get annoyed very quickly, you should find another person to talk to your customers.
Sure.
So it's about that, and it's about understanding your customers.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else?
I think in chat there is one question.
Okay, let me check. From essential of good management, please clarify the fourth one. What it mean? I don't understand. Fourth. Okay. The uncontrolled points. Right.
Yeah.
How can I close this again? Let me close this. So you want to talk about the critical control points. Well, for example, if you keep reading in the course, there's a whole chapter on HACCP where the control points are explained in more detail. So first of all, go back to the course, read the chapter on HACCP. But what I mean, for example, let's say you are making, what are you making? You're baking biscuits, all right? Critical control points would, for example, be the temperature of your oven and the baking time, all right? So if you want to make good cookies, you have to make sure you're always using the right temperature, you're always using the right baking time. These are critical control points. If you don't control them, you will have burnt biscuits or you will have undercooked biscuits, something like this, all right? So that's what I'm saying. You need to understand your process yourself. For example, you make yogurt. I talked about making yogurt before. Critical control points would be having good cultures, having the right incubation time, having the right incubation temperature, having fresh milk. These are all critical control points. If you do not control them and anything of these goes wrong, your product will be wrong. All right? You're making dried green banana flour. Critical control points would be ripeness of your banana, drying time, drying temperature, things like this, all right? Or then packaging. If you want to keep the flour dry, you have to have airtight packaging. That would be a critical control point. These are the things that you need to know about, understand well, and control to make sure you have a good product. Is that clearer now? The person who asked the question.
Milkias. Yeah.
Good, it's clear. Right, thank you. Okay, then let's go into production planning. All right. In production planning, that means you have to think through the process before you start it. And you need to know which decisions you need to make sure it's going to be successful. When you submitted your business plans or your business drafts, I asked a couple of questions, and they actually aim at exactly this. Have you thought through your product or your business idea properly to be sure it's going to be successful. Okay, so some questions you might have and that they need to answer beforehand are, do you have enough raw material? Can you get it all year round? If you, for example, if you use mangoes, they're seasonal. If you use, let's say, you want to make jam, you need to have white sugar, because if you use brown sugar, the jam will be brown. So you need white sugar. Can you get white sugar all year round? Or is it sometimes difficult to get white sugar where you are? All right. So it's questions like this. Can you source your raw material year round at a stable price? Or do the prices fluctuate? That's the thing, like the cost. Can you actually, if you say, I need green bananas for my banana flour, do they cost this little so that actually when you sell your flour, you're actually earning more than what you've paid for? So it's this question, do the calculations. After me drying this, how much do I have? Because the green banana, the fresh green banana is heavier than the flour. So do the process, try it. If I have 10 bananas, how much flour do I get? How much does it weigh? For how much can I sell it? How much do the green bananas cost? Does the cost between the buying the banana and selling the flour, does that make business sense? All right, so you need to understand that. Then the next question is, can you get the equipment that you need? For example, if you want to make flour, how are you going to dry it? Are you going to build your own dryer? How big does this dryer have to be for you to produce a sufficient amount? All right. So, for example, if you build a normal size dryer, maybe you can dry, let's say, 10 trays of bananas in 2 days. Is that a business model? Is that like you maybe get 1 kilo of banana flour in a day? Is that a business? All right. Or how many dryers do you need, or how big does your dryer have to be to produce a sufficient amount of banana flour so that you can call it a business? All right. Or do you need a cooker? Do you need a freezer? Do you need a cutter? What do you need? Can you get it where you are? Or do you have to import it at a huge amount? So these are questions that you need to ask yourself. And then next thing is, if you import equipment or you buy imported equipment, what happens if it breaks down? Is there anybody in your area who can actually repair it or maintain it? Or do you need to send it back to Europe or America? So please answer these questions first. And then one that is also very important, which I struggled with a lot when I was in Tanzania, I was selling jam. And at that time, getting jars was not a problem because there was a factory in Dar es Salaam that produced jars, but they did not produce lids. So actually getting lids in Tanzania in those years, that was in the 90s, it was very, very, very difficult. So we had to import them, we had to source them. So sometimes I was like a maniac running through Tanzania trying to find anybody who had lids for sale, because our production would stop once I didn't have any lids. So packaging material is a big issue. Where do you get it from? Does it have the right quality to maintain your product? Does it last long enough? Does it look appealing enough? You know, these are all questions you have to answer beforehand. And then the last one is on your staff. Because if your process is very complicated, do you have experienced staff who knows what they're doing? Or can you at least train them? Do you know the procedure well enough to train somebody to do it? So if you want to make yogurt, that might be easy enough, or drying bananas might be easy enough. But for example, if you want to bake cakes or breads, that actually needs people who know what they're doing. So think about this. Can you hire these people, or can you train these people that you need? So there are some more questions. So it's getting just more complicated. Once you have produced your product, all right, let's say you're producing your 100 kilos of banana flour in a month. Where are you selling them? Have you already found your distributors? Have you talked to enough shops or schools or hospitals or restaurants who might want to buy your product? So before you start processing, make sure you know where you're going to sell your product. And then also, let's say, when I was making jam in Tanzania, I was up in the Usambara Mountains, which is in the north, but my customers were in Dar es Salaam. So how do you now transport your product from where you are? Let's say you're in Hawassa, but you want to sell in Addis Ababa. How are you getting your product there? How do you organize your transport? Yeah, can you put it in a box on a bus? Is your bus distribution system reliable enough so that they take it and somebody picks it up on the other side? Do you have to actually get a car and drive stuff down? Does it need to be cooled on the transport? Because if you're selling yogurt, it cannot get warm. So do you need a cooler truck or something? So these are all questions that you need to answer. Then the next one is, do you have a building? Do you have a facility? If not, can you find one? And is the building suitable? So if you want to do food processing, it needs to be safe, right? It needs to be clean. Can you clean it properly? Does it have like maybe mosquito screens in the windows? Are the floors suitable? Do you have doors that you can lock properly? All of that. Do you have electricity? Do you have potable water? Do you need to do anything to the building to actually make it fit for your production? Same, power, water. Are they affordable? Are they available? Do you have power cutoffs? So if you're in an area where you have regular power cutouts, how are you going to use your ovens or your mixers or your whatever it is? Do you need a generator? Yeah. If you use a generator, how much would that cost? Because then you have to pour fuel into that generator on a regular basis. How much would that change your production cost? So these are questions you need to answer. Water. If you do food processing, you have to have potable water. That means water that is safe for consumption, not just for the production, but also for cleaning. Can you make sure the water that you're getting is drinkable straight from the tap? Or do you need to filter it? Do you need to boil it? So these are all questions you need to answer. Same equipment. We had this question already. Megla, we have this. Then the last thing is, does your cost income ratio make any financial business sense? All right. And that is a lot of production planning comes in, because a lot of people say, yeah, I can sell it at that much and it cost me that much, so I'm going to earn this much. And they have really not calculated through how much they need to produce to make that much. And this is what I'm going to do with you right now. Let me see. If you do this on a daily basis, all right? Plan beforehand which raw materials you need in the coming week. How much do they cost? Where do they come from? How do you transport them? when and where will they be received, and so on and so on. Where will you store them? Do they need to be washed when they come? They need to be cooled when they come. So these are all questions you need to answer first. And then plan how many people you need on the day when the raw material arrives to process it, or for the coming week, how many people do you need to process your things? Which kind of work do you expect, and how many people do you need for that? Let's go through an example. I've just thought up a chutney business, okay? So these figures are just my imagination. Let's say you can sell a jar of chutney for $1, all right? A jar contains 200 milliliters, and the glass jar costs you 30 cents, the lids cost you 10 cents, and then the label costs you 0.5 cents. And then if you need, then you also need the mangoes, you need salt, you need sugar, you need vinegar, and you need spices to make your chutney, okay? So these are the preliminaries of making a chutney. Now let's say one person can cut 30 mangoes in a day, and with a 20-liter pot, one person can cook 150 liters of chutney in a day, all right? So that would be the stuff planning. To make 150 liters of chutney that one person can cook, you need 100 kilos of raw mangoes, 20 kilos of sugar, 20 kilos of salt, 10 liters of vinegar, and 1 kilo spices. All right. That's per day. Okay. 150 liters of chutney would be 750 jars. That's per day. And you need also 750 lids, and you need also 750 labels per day. You need 100 kilos of mangoes, 20 kilos of, we had this. In a month, that means you need 15,000 jars, 15,000 lids, and 15,000 labels. If you haven't calculated that before you start your business, you run out of jars and lids and labels on day 2. And then your production comes to a stop, all right? So these are things you need to answer first. You might say, well, I can buy jars there. Can you buy 15,000 jars a month? Can you buy 15,000 lids a month? All right. Can you print 15,000 labels a month? It also needs now labor. You need to move those jars. You need to store those jars. You need to take them from the store to the production area. Somebody needs to print and cut the labels and put the labels on the jars. Have you thought this through? All right. Then you need 2 tons of mangoes, almost half a ton of sugar, half a ton of salt, and 20 kilos of spices. The raw mango, 2 tons of raw mango, will be a storage and logistic issue. So where do you get 2 tons of mangoes every month? And the 400 kilos of sugar and the 400 kilos of salt and the 20 kilos of spices will be a cash issue. Do you have enough money to buy these things? Because they're expensive. So then you need to consider first, also, to prepare 100 kilos of mango in a day, you need 3 people to cut them. And then before the person can start cooking the mangoes to make chutney, you'll have to start cutting them. So you need to also reconsider that. What is the order of work? Who needs to start to have something ready so the next person can do the next step? So that's why you need to understand the process yourself to make sure you're planning right. Because if you say to the person who's cooking the chutney, she should come at 7, but nobody's there to cut the mangoes, then this person is just sitting there and waiting for somebody to cut the mangoes. And believe me, that person will be just happily sitting there and waiting. until you realize that that person isn't doing anything. All right. So you need to know in which order who has to do what and plan it properly beforehand. So this is the other thing. Plan for the transport. How are you getting the things? How do you get 15,000 jars every month? Do you have a pickup truck? Is somebody delivering them? Where do you store them? Do you have storage facilities for that? All of that needs to be answered. And then, of course, if you have made 15,000 jars of chutney, can you sell them? Does anybody in your vicinity need 15,000 jars of chutney? Where are they going? All right. So this needs to be answered beforehand. If you can make and sell 15,000 jars of chutney and they sell it at $1 per jar, that means you would have $15,000 income. All right. So that sounds like a very good business. But then the jars and the lids and the labels alone would cost you $6,000. That means almost half of your money is gone just by the packaging material. Now the question is, can you buy the other inputs, the raw materials, the salt, the sugar, the spices? Can you pay the employees, the rent, the electricity, the taxes, transport, and so on for less than $6,000 a month? In that case, if yes, your business is profitable. If no, keep your hands off this business. But before you start your business, you should be able to answer these questions, because otherwise you will be running into trouble. And the biggest question is, can you get sufficient supplies? Can you store your supplies adequately? So maybe, let's say your supplies are seasonal. You only get them during a certain period in the year. That means you need to maybe pre-process and freeze them for the rest of the year. So you can produce, keep your production running the whole year. All right. Do you have enough freezer space? Or you store it until you can use it later. Do you have enough storage place? So that is important, because if you lose your raw material halfway through because of insufficient storage, you have a big problem. Do you have the right equipment, and do you have the right number of employees? And then, of course, again, the question is, can you sell all of the product that you're processing? Because if not, you'll have a lot of product sitting there and you'll be running around finding customers. And if you buy supplies, that means your cash is used up for the supplies. It's sitting in the supplies. If you don't sell them, you're not getting cash back. And that is a big problem in any business. So the question is, if you can only sell a smaller amount, let's say you can't sell 15,000 jars, you can only sell 100 jars or something. You need to ask yourself, is the business still profitable? So let's look at the other calculation. If one employee can cut 30 kilos of raw mangoes and then uses the rest of the time to cook the jars, and you can produce maybe 150 jars of chutney pudding. That means you need only 3,000 lids and jars and labels per month. That is maybe more doable. It's still an issue, but maybe more doable. You need only 600 kilos of mangoes, 80 kilos of sugar, 80 kilos of salt, 4 kilos of spice. That's more manageable maybe, all right? But your income now is only $3,000 per month, provided you sell all the 150 jars. Your jars, lids, and labels cost you $1,200 per month. That means you're left with $1,800 to pay for your raw materials, to pay for your employees, to pay your taxes, to pay for your rent, your water, your electricity, and so on and so on. And you need to ask yourself, whatever is left over at the end of paying all my bills, is it still satisfactory? Does it still make sense to run this business? All right. So that's what I want you to do. When you come up with your business idea, is ask yourself all these questions and do the calculations. Do it properly. Understand your process. See exactly what it takes and calculate it. How many can I make in a day? Can I get the inputs? Can I get the packaging material? How many of those can I sell in a day or in a month, whatever you want to calculate? How much do I earn? How much does it cost me? And does it make any financial sense? Or is it ridiculous? Like, because if you run all of that, let's say you're actually investing $5,000 a month and you're only earning $4,900 a month, is it worth doing it for $100? Because that would be your income. Is that good enough to invest $5,000 on a monthly basis? All right. What happens if something goes wrong? Maybe the tax office comes and wants a big tax repayment from you. Where is the money coming from? Oh no, somebody's phone is going to die. Sorry. So ask yourself, where are the bottlenecks, the critical control points in the whole process again that you need to take care of? Is it the supplies? Is it the customers? Is it the employees? Is it the machinery? Is it the cash? What is it? Make sure you have enough information about hidden costs. Hidden costs are these costs that you might not be thinking of in the first place, and that hit you once you start your business. Like, you have to pay for a license. Then there's suddenly somebody coming from the fire department and they want you to have a fire extinguisher in every of your rooms, and you have to pay $50 for each of the fire extinguishers. Are you aware of these things? You're right. So they'll just come at you. If you've taken out a loan, how much do you have to repay in a month to service your loan? How much extra cost do you have on an employee? Let's say the employee himself, he only earns, let's say, $150 a month, all right? But then you have to pay health insurance, you have to pay pension fund. They might have a funeral and they want another $50 from you for their funeral contributions. Think of these things. They will come, all right? Then what does transport cost you? Transporting the raw materials to your facility, transporting the product to the customer, transporting anything else that you need to get, packaging material. How are you getting the boxes of jars to your facilities? All of those questions. How much will you have to pay in taxes? Go and ask somebody who knows before you start your business. This can be an accountant, this can be a tax officer, somebody who already runs a business. Just ask them, how much does it cost me in taxes? Then you'll have to have an audit every year. Do you need to pay an accountant to do your accounts, or are you capable of doing your own accounts? How much does an auditor cost per year to do your audited returns? Because you have to provide them to the tax office. An auditor usually costs quite a lot of money. So make sure you know which cost you'll have to expect. Then can you make sure you have enough cash on a daily basis to pay your bills? As I said in the beginning, you need to have a good relationship with your suppliers, and you have to get a good relationship with your employees. If you can't pay your suppliers, they will not deliver the mangoes or the green bananas or whatever it is next time. All right, they'll sell to somebody else. If you cannot pay your employees at the end of the month, they will find another employer. So do you have enough cash to pay your bills on a regular basis? That means, can you collect what others owe you on a regular basis? So if you deliver your product to a supermarket, for example, you need to know that most supermarkets only pay maybe 8 weeks later, maybe 12 weeks later. They are using your money for 2 months, 3 months to pay their own bills before they pay you. So can you survive those 8 weeks or 3 months without payment? You see, so this is cash flow planning, and you need to be aware of that, because this is the biggest stress that entrepreneurs will have, that they need to keep on running their business and cash is not coming in as they expected it. You see, just because you produced a box of something, that doesn't mean you have the money for it. It's the money is sitting in the box, and unless you get the cash for it, it's fixed, and you need to make sure to get your cash in quickly. So then the other one, I've said this several times, and you need to really be aware of that. If you're working with a seasonal raw material, that means a lot of extra planning, a lot of logistics. How do you make sure you get as much as you need during the season to last you for the rest of the year? And then a lot of these seasonal products are also, they have an extra issue because they are ripe at a very short period of time. How do you make sure you don't get it unripe, overripe? You know, how do you talk to your suppliers in such a way that you know once the product is ripe and you should collect it, you know? How do you make sure that they do not send you a truckload of mangoes which are unripe just because they wanted the money now because one of their relatives is in hospital and they really needed the money now, you know? They will send you the truckload of mangoes and say, pay me for my mangoes, but you have received unripe mangoes. So these are all things you need to be aware of because they will be coming and you need to plan for them properly. So how do you set up your supplies in a way that makes sure you get them at the right time, in the right state, from the right people? You have transport in place once you need it. All of that needs to be taken care of. Right. Extra difficulty happens when you have more than one product. So, for example, when I was producing jam, I was producing 8, 9, 10 different types of jam, depending on the fruits that we could get. We were also making chutneys. We were also making dairy products. We also had a bakery and we had a butchery. So there's a lot of different products that need input planning, that need employee planning, that need sales planning. Can you make sure that you have this facility in the right place? Or let's say you just run a simple bakery, okay? And you plan on having 4 different breads, 2 different cakes, 2 different cookies. All right. How many do you need in a day of each type? In which order do you need to use the mixing machine, the ovens, the storage? How do you plan your workers? Which product do they start with? And so on. Which supplies do you need for each of these products? Where do you store them? So the more products you have, the more complex your whole planning process becomes. So be very, very careful with saying, I have 15 different products because that looks fancy, if you cannot actually cope with the planning, all right? Sometimes you go to a restaurant, for example, and you find a menu which has 100 things on it. And once you order it, it goes like, no, today we don't have that. because they were not able to get that kind of fish on a regular basis. But when they were planning the menu, they thought like, oh, this looks really cool, let's have this. But they cannot make sure that they get the supplies on a daily basis. So before you start saying, I'm selling this and this and this and that, make sure you can actually produce that on a regular basis. All right. I talked a lot. My voice is going. Do you have questions? Are you all now very, very disappointed and never want to start a business?
Yeah, sorry, just let me say a little bit. Yeah, you said a lot, but it was critical since it is supported with practical example. It was so clear, but unfortunately, we lost most of participants owing to electricity. So we have left almost 7 participants who are using their phone.
Okay,
and
well,
data connection. Yeah, so they are lucky.
I'll send the
Document, I think, the
I'll send
PPT.
the PPT out. Shall I send it to you as, I can send it as WeTransfer, so each of you has it, or shall I put it on the platform? What do you prefer? I can also
Is Girma with us? Yeah,
give,
I think he's with us. So shall Anya drop the document on the module, or better to send using email?
Kirma.
Girma?
What's this says in the chat? In the chat, it says.
I think we have one question, Anya.
Okay, yeah, there's a question. What means by the phrase long storage means cash is tied up for longer periods? Okay, that is actually very easy. You just need to think, if you buy supplies, all right? And that means to buy the supplies, you have to use your cash, all right? That means the cash is no longer in your pocket. The cash is now in the boxes of supplies that you bought, all right? Just think of it, the cash has turned into supplies. And until the day that you can sell these supplies and the supplies are turned into cash again, you are out of cash. You have the assets. So basically you still have the money, but in form of supplies. You no longer have cash. Once you sell the supplies, they turn into cash again and you have cash. And then with the cash, you can buy more supplies or do other things, pay people. With the boxes of supplies, you cannot pay, all right? So let's say you bought 500 tons of mangoes or coconuts or whatever, because you need them for the rest of the year, but you can only sell them bit by bit every month. That means the money that you've invested, the cash that you've invested, only returns to you bit by bit. And the rest of it is stuck, it's tied up in the supplies that you paid for. Only when when you sell it, it turns into cash again. And that's what we say, why we call it, it's tied up in your stocks. So basically, you're still the owner of it. So in your books, you're still rich, but you have no cash until you sell it. And that's what
Okay, Miss, it's clear. Yes, I understand it. Yeah, I understand it. Clear. Thank you.
This product specification and producing multiple products need different way of technique. What is the distinction? Yes, of course. Let's say you are making jams and you're making chutneys like we did. They're different recipes, all right? So for every recipe, you have a different product specification. You have different inputs. You have different cooking times, preparation orders, and so on. So you need to make sure that it works. All right. So which product do you have to prepare first, cook first, store in which conditions? So let's say, for example, you're making jam out of berries, and you're making jam out of mangoes, and you're making jam out of, let's say, passion fruits, okay? So the berries will rot the fastest. So you need to either cool them, freeze them, or cook them jam immediately. The mangoes will rot next. So this is the second fast product you need to make. The passion fruits you can actually keep for a couple of days before they start rotting. So you need to take care of that, because if you start with the passion fruit jam, by the time you're done, your berries will be rotten, your mangoes will be half rotten, all right? Or you say, okay, I only buy passion fruits once every 2 weeks, but I buy berries in small amounts on a daily basis, because I only can process so much and I have no storage. So you need to make sure you take care of that. Can you find somebody who provides berries on a daily basis in the amount that you need? So these are all questions for which you need to understand your product very well. Your raw material, how does it behave? Where does it come from? How much does it cost? What are the pitfalls? Like, as I said, if you're buying mangoes, you might get unripe mangoes, you might get overripe mangoes, you might get mangoes with some maggots in them. You see, you might get mangoes that have monillia and they just start rotting right away. These are problems you need to be aware of. And then there's different kinds of mangoes. So which of the mangoes actually gives you the tastes for the dried mango or for the jam that you want to make? Some might not be suitable because they have no acid, they're just too sweet, or some are just too, I don't know. You need to really have the specifications for your raw materials in place, because you understand your product. Which mango gives you what you want? Where do you get that mango from? How much does that mango cost? When is the season for this mango? How can you transport it? These are all questions you have to answer before you can even buy one mango. All right? So get into the kitchen, make your product, see what can go wrong. This is making mistakes is where you learn. All right. If there are no more questions, then I would say we'll end it for today, because we have already done quite a bit. And I will share the presentation. I'll send you a WeTransfer. That is a link where you can download it if you have enough internet to download it. Otherwise, I'll also drop it on the platform and send you the link to the platform as well. So everybody who had to drop out can see the end there. And you can also go through the slides again if there are any things you would like to recall. Yeah, or are there any questions left? All good?
Yes, I think nobody has a question.
Good. Then I'll say, let's stop it here. Save your internet and your electricity on your phones. I appreciate that you've been with us today. And then I'll see you soon again after my holidays. I'll be back with my grading your submissions, and then we can have another meeting. Somebody's writing in the chat. Thank you. All right. Me too. Thank you for being here. All right.
Good.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice holiday, Anya.
you. I will. Bye-bye.
Bye.